Hello, everybody, and welcome along to this week's edition of the Rebel White Ball. And I suppose all week we've been hearing nothing but about the blue wave and the red wave. Well, this weekend, from a Cork sporting perspective, we'll be hoping that will be a massive one in terms of the red wave, with 4 Cork senior teams in action. We'll talk a little bit about those later on, but I suppose we can't let the occasion pass without some mention of the election that's going on across in America. And look, it's probably the most controversial, the most unusual one that many of us have ever experienced. I can't say that I stood up to watch any of it because I suppose there was so much predicted about what would happen in this election that staying up watching it was a bit like watching the All-Ireland final, knowing that it was going to go to extra time, but that extra time would be played 2 days later. Some of these states were predicted from the word go. The swing states then were the real ones, but because of the postal votes and the incredible character that is Donald Trump, akin to many Irish people, I'm hoping that he's the banished doors will be removed from him and that he'll be shown the door from the White House. But of course, I suppose you have to understand that nearly 69 million Americans still voted for him, because basically he was ensuring that their pocket was a little bit better off than it was in the past. If you think Donald Trump is concerned about anybody, only himself. The canvassing that went on in the recent past show that already, the coronavirus has claimed the lives of 35,000 Americans. And I have absolutely no doubt that if house parties and aftermath celebrations contribute to the spread of the virus in this country, well, you can be sure that some of those rallies and his behaviour contributed not alone to cases in America, but contributed to death. So he was quite happy that people would die so that he'd be kept in the White House. I suppose the other side of it is that a lot of people would be, when he got in there first, I would think that people said, maybe this is the way to go, but he's turned out to be such an incredible individual and has probably led to, I don't know who's leading who, but you like the likes of Boris Johnson and some more of these domineering leaders that have begun to develop all across the Western world and the developed world, as it is so called. So whether Joe Biden is any better, but of course it's a little bit more, I suppose, than Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. It's basically the policies and it's all about shillings at the end of the day for a lot of these individuals. I'm not too sure who's going to win it, but it looks like that Joe Biden is the man leading the way, if you like. And I suppose they'll all be delighted about that. And many people up around Mayo, he's supposed to have roots there. And I noticed that Duhallow, area of West Cork, or North Cork, West Cork, my God, that Duhallow reckon that they have some relatives down there as well. So we'll be keeping an eye on that one. But CNN and Fox News are the 2 big media organisations. But if they really wanted to see what a close election was, they should have come to Cork back in 2019. When it came down to the last seat in the Skibbereen, the Bantry Skibbereen electoral area, there was 2 candidates for the last seat, Holly Cairns, and you know where she's after going since, and Finbar Harrington. And when the votes were come to the first day, it was 1,865 to 1,864 in favour of Finbar on that night. There was 2 subsequent recounts, and eventually Holly got there by 1. And by the way, I had the pleasure of being, could you call it that, and being in at that count, and the legals were around that time as well. I suppose it was a bit of an interesting week for Leo. And my God, I know that some people are divided in this as well, but I thought it was absolutely ridiculous what was going on. Sure, I know he shouldn't have done what he did, but I think this guy is a bit unusual in that, I don't know who should put this now, but I saw somebody writing that, what Leo did was something like Donald Trump. And God, that is so different. But when he was being hauled in the Dáil during the week and he was getting all these questions for about 2 hours, it did remind me sometimes of, maybe a teacher in charge of discipline in a school bringing in a pupil, knowing well the pupil was after committing some bit of a misdemeanor but wasn't admitted, and asking him or her a line of question trying to get them to admit something. But anyway, Leo survived. And to be honest with you, I'm glad that he did. And to think that anybody would suggest that he's anywhere remotely like Donald Trump, I think is well off the mark. But anyway, this is the weekend, a huge weekend in Gaelic games. Whether you're talking about the Cork football team, hurling team, the ladies football team, or the Camogie, it's do or die, I think, nearly for all of them, except for the Camogie team. We'll start with the Cork hurlers, and I know that there was so much criticism last week after the loss to Waterford, but I'd like to make this point. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe further back, we were absolutely delighted that Club Championship came back. And we were delighted that both Cork team management, senior team managements I'm talking about now, gave it their full blessing. And that they weren't sneakily bringing players into training camps. They let them stay with their club. And I remember thinking at the time, look, does it really matter how the Cork inter-county team will get on this year? The clubs had their day. It was just a pity that they weren't able to be, that the county championships weren't finished. But clubs had their county players. They were fully committed to them. And I think maybe that then, of course, like because the Cork championships ran on, it did affect some of the preparation time. Now, you might think that I'm making excuses here, but I would say that, look, for this year alone, we were not going to be too critical of any Cork intercounty. We probably should never be, because these people doing so much work on a voluntary basis. But anyway, the hurlers who were, I suppose you were saying beaten badly last weekend by Waterford, even though that I think that goal that Waterford got had a huge say in the match, and had the referee given a free out, which he should have on that occasion, maybe the match could have changed. Some things like this do happen. But anyway, to use that dreaded phrase, Cork are where they are, and they play Dublin now on Saturday in Thurles. I presume there will be changes. Now, I know Dublin have been kind of impressive enough, haven't they? They defeated Laois, but my view in Dublin, I think I'm not saying they're never going to win All Ireland, and I don't think they're in that hunt at this particular time. Cork have beaten them in the recent past in a qualifier and in an All Ireland semi-final. I think was a semi-final I think in 2013. And some people will point to the fact that Dublin would have won those matches had it not been for players being sent off, and that was rough in Dublin at the time. But I do think that Cork are going to, and I got a bit of criticism last week, by the way, which is welcome. No problem with that. Over predicting that Cork would beat Waterford. I thought that at the time. I didn't think Waterford were going to, their championship record had been absolutely abysmal. But look, fair play to them. They're a small county and they deserve huge credit. And I had no problem with them having that particular victory, if you like. It's not too often that things happen. Like, look at the size of Waterford compared to other counties. So any day they have in the sun, I don't think is a bad day for them. Or for anybody really. But anyway, I think there'll be changes possibly in the Cork team. Like most pundits that know a lot more about this than I do would point to the fact that they just want to, there was maybe a lack of aggression, which seems to be a big part of hurling now. And by the way, mentioning hurling, this famous black card that the purists reckon should never be brought into hurling. Well, I'll tell you one thing. It's like a deck of cards coming right or down around them now, because the amount of cynicism that is in the game in terms of dragging down players on their way to goal. So I would argue if there was a need for a black card, and I would question it in football, there's certainly a need for one in hurling. So maybe the best thing to do would be get rid of the black card in football, and then that would stop that particular discussion. There was talk also about the Blackrock players, but if you look through the Blackrock team, on one level, you could maybe bring them all in. I think they were a very even, well-coached outfit. Maybe there was one or two of those players I think didn't want to join the setup, and I think there's one or two of them that would be carrying an injury. But anyway, I'm still going to go for a Cork victory tomorrow. In the other qualifier game, it's going to be Laois and Clare, and obviously I think Clare are going to win that. And then Cork and Clare will be in the draw. Well, hopefully Cork and Clare will be in the draw on Monday morning with the other two teams, Wexford and Tipperary. So for Cork to win the All-Ireland, which is seemingly what a lot of people around here want, they'd have to win 4 matches. And, somebody would argue that they wouldn't have that level of a consistency. The injuries, of course, of Owen, to Owen Cadigan and Dara Fitzgibbon, they are contributing factors, these are leading players, and, they cut down options, if you like. Robbie O'Flynn, I hope, will be back this weekend. But I think there will be changes in the team, which will be announced, I think, at is it 9:30 tonight? And it was guessed last week. There's so much interest in it that the actual website crashed. Then on Sunday is the big game between Cork and Kerry in football, and let's be honest here, Kerry are going to win this, I would imagine, unless, somebody suggested that we form or organise a massive traffic jam in Macroom around 2 o'clock or maybe earlier on Sunday morning, or maybe tamper with the thermometers in the Kerry preparation area beforehand, because this Kerry team has its eyes and designs on winning in All Ireland, and as I said to you before, it's well set up for them. If you look at it from their point of view, they've got 3 series scoring forwards. That's the way Peter Keane now lines up his team, in David Clifford, Sean O'Shea and Tony Brosnan. And I suppose Cork I don't know, how do you manage that? Do you put series man markers on them? I'm not too sure, but I suppose one thing that has to be said, with these water breaks now, you're not going to win a match in the first quarter, but you can certainly lose one. And I would imagine that is going to be a real cage early on, and Cork will be, have their defence well packed. But, the kick-out strategy, you see these goalkeepers like that, their importance in the game and their role in the game is absolutely frightening. And Shane Ryan's, there's no doubt he's like Micheál Martin. These goalkeepers are generally good. The amount of times they have to come into play in terms of preventing the ball going to the back of the net, I mean, that's nearly gone. They should change the names, like they're restart merchants now. And they say that Shane Ryan maybe is not as well, his game is not as well developed, and that's yet. So that could be one thing like that. If Cork target, make him go along for it. Cork have, good players out the field, and, like fellas like Ian Maguire and Cillian O'Hanlon from Kilshannigan. I see now that Colm O'Callaghan is named in the team now, whether he's going to start or not. And Paul Walsh is another fella that can come in there. For 3 Cork players who'll be making their championship debut, you have Maurice Shanley from Clonakilty. I think he's picked a 3, but that makes no difference anymore. Sean Meehan from the Kishkane Club is picked. Whether he starts, but it'll be a big day for the Kishkane Club. I'm trying to think off the top of my head when last did they have a player, and of course Colm O'Callaghan. I'm a bit surprised that Cathal O'Mahony, but I presume he's injured, isn't included in the team. Like he is a real scoring forward. If he's not a scoring forward, Cork don't have one. And but maybe that, I did hear talk that maybe he mightn't have been ready for this game. Mark Keane, though, who plays and will play AFL with Collingwood in his home and got permission, is kind of a rookie out there. He's on the Cork panel. No, I'm not too sure why would you bring in a guy like that into the Cork panel unless you're going to play him. This guy is going to be off out there again, and the best of good luck to him in terms of that. So it's very hard, really, isn't it, to look beyond Kerry for this game. They have been Munster champions since 2012 of the panel on Sunday. There's only 2 Cork players that have been on a team that beat Kerry in a championship game, and that's Mark Collins, who's playing corner forward, and Paul Kerrigan, who's listed among the substitutes. Peter Crowley, by the way, the Kerry defender, and David Morton are only 2 Kerry players that have experienced defeat at Cork. So it is a huge, huge ask for them. But look, Cork have been improving, and we set the target at the start of the year, get promoted from Division 3. Back then we thought they'd be qualifiers, so we were saying, look, they're going to lose to Kerry, but, do well along the qualifier and maybe get to what we thought was a Super 8. All of that is history now. If they're beaten, they're out the gap, and, we wish them the best of luck, of course, on this occasion. But, it's very hard to see. It would be a major, major shock, let me tell you, if Cork were able to turn them over. In the other divisions, in the other championships in Leinster, we have Dublin taking on Westmeath, and of course Dessie Farrell's team. You'd expect them, and sure they will win too. Laois should get over Longford, the team that gave Cork a walkover in the league, and some people are really annoyed about that. Meath and Wicklow winning again last week. For me, they'd have to be the favourites there, and then Kildare with Jack O'Connor should get, I think should get over Offaly, who were pleased with their win over Carlow last weekend, but I think Kildare would be just too much for them. Then up in Connacht, you had Sligo, they had 7 cases and they pulled out of the Connacht Championship, and I know a lot of people said it interfered with the integrity of the All-Ireland Championship, but it's really Galway were, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind, that the integrity of this championship could be questioned a long number of years because of there's not a huge number of teams that have a chance of winning it. And Sligo were going to be beaten by Galway anyway, so it's not going to make a huge difference, but of course it means that Galway have a way less serious matches to play compared to the poor boys up in the north of Ireland. Maybe we shouldn't be worried about them. Mayo take on Roscommon, and I think this is going to be great crack because it's like some pundits would be trying to make out that Mayo are a good team, Roscommon are a good team, and Galway are a good team. And they're kind of saying, look, oh yeah, they could be dark horses for the All-Ireland. So all of a sudden we think that Connacht can supply 3 teams that are capable of winning All-Ireland. I think they're very even sides, and I wouldn't be too surprised if Roscommon, the Rossies as they like to be known as, were to emerge victorious on that one. And then up in Ulster, and wasn't it so often we talked about Ulster football being not that attractive to watch, but my God, last week, do you know something? Those 2 games, Cavan Monaghan and Donegal and Tyrone, were as good as any match there was, and I'm including the hurling championship matches as well. Incredible contests in dreadful conditions, and up there, Cavan and Mickey Graham, they were going down to Division 3. He was out the gap, and maybe his team were out of the championship, and Mickey himself could have been out the gap, but all of a sudden things are massive up there, and for Cavan to beat Monaghan, it's a huge thing for Cavan people. They play Antrim now in the quarter-final on Saturday. They should get over that one. And in the other quarter-final, Down will play for Mana. I mean, Down are a side that can be good one day, not the other, for Mana, very, very small county. I remember one time somebody telling me there was a third of it under water, a third of it were populated by a religious belief that mightn't be that interest in Gaelic football, and then the other third were the Roman Catholic side of the coin. So for that county, it's so small, but I think that Down we get over that and win that one. So then we're moving on in terms of what other the big championship matches, and of course ladies football, and just dead simple here for Cork. In the ladies football, there's 4 groups of 3. One team will only go forward to the semi-final, at the All-Ireland semi-final, and in Cork's group you have Kerry, Cork and Cavan, and Kerry gave Cavan a right hammering last weekend. So if they were to beat Cork this weekend, that's it, done and dusted. A draw might get Cork through, but they'd have to go up to Cavan and beat Cavan by more than what Kerry did to them last weekend, which was a considerable victory. Kerry are improving, no doubt in the world about that. Declan Quill is in charge of them, and a couple of years ago they nearly went out of existence. They are improving, and earlier on in the week, this match was supposed to be played at a neutral venue. I had to believe that they couldn't find one. There was arguments then about the tossing the coin. Eventually they did. Of course, Kerry won that. So it was on us to Austin Stack Park in Tralee. The Cork team selected, they're still, I think, good enough to win this match. They are missing a number of players, but having said that, they have a seriously strong half-back line. There was a lot of talk, of course, about dual players, but I think we're down out to one dual player this weekend, and that's Hannah Looney. Libby Coppinger, it would appear, is carrying injury. She's listed on the team, and the Cork and Galway the following day. But I think that realistically, they are the only 2. The other 3 probably are not going to be major players in the football match. 2 of them not making the panel, I think. So it's a big match, no doubt in the world about it. Cork would like to get back into winning All Irelands, and but they have to get over this one. I think they do. They will, by the way. And then on Sunday, and well done to Galway, they changed their fixture with Cork. This is the game this is the one Cork team they can afford to lose, because were they to lose, they qualify for the quarterfinal. So when they play Galway on Sunday, if they win, they're into a semi-final. If they lose, and Galway are the All-Ireland champions. So I think there's going to be a big ask for them. And came across a Wexford player during the week, who had played against Galway and played against Cork last weekend. Cork got a great win over them. And she felt that Cork would be, that Galway would be the slightly better side. And again, Hannah Looney is going to be a player there. Jim O'Connor is out injured. But in the 2 league games, Paddy Moore and his backroom staff introduced a lot of new players, like the Corsi Rovers Youthful Brigade. And I think Cork they are going the right way. I mean, Cork Camogie is never going to be far off the top. It's a serious sport in this neck of the woods. So I think that maybe, I'm not too sure how they'll get on this weekend, but they're going to be in the mix, and they'll eventually get back into an All-Ireland semi-final. So that's kind of our look at Gaelic games. The other, I won't say the other big story, but we mentioned a little bit about the Premier League, and for those of you who follow Man United, things are not going great at the moment. They're lying in 15th place, and when you think that 18th, 19th, 20 are going to be relegated, it could be the weekend when we'd have to say goodbye to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They've had a poor run of results, including during the weekend, in Europe during the week, and then the recent loss to Arsenal. So they play Everton on Saturday, and we're Everton to win. And Everton are not doing too bad, like in terms of being a good start for them. So it could be the end of the road for poor old Ole. Liverpool, many people's, I suppose I'm not saying favourite teams maybe that tune this way, have a big game against Manchester City. I think that game is on Sunday. And finally, before we say goodbye to you for this weekend, we'd like to remember an individual who passed away. And, I know sometimes that, like obviously anybody that passed away is a sad situation, but Jim Crimmon, I can't say that I know the man individually. He was a fabulous teacher in Coláiste Creasery, a legendary character in there. And ever since his untimely passing during the week, I've been contacted by a number of people. He contacted insofar just to tell me that he'd passed away, and some of them were past pupils, and some of them had been people that that had come through him, that had been affected by him in a positive way at Nemo Rangers. A great teacher. He was an outstanding, he was a hurler and footballer. But any time I saw, looking down on the sideline of Nemo Rangers teams, Jim Crimmon was in the background. He used to have that clipboard in his hand. And I always felt that, my God, if Donald Trump could learn something from Jim Crimmon, that he was such a gentleman, but had such an influence. Sometimes it's easy to be a gentleman, but to be a gentleman with influence. And he had influence all over the place in terms of how Nemo played. And he was behind the scenes and did incredible work. Obviously, his family will miss him, but so too the teaching colleagues at Coláiste Creasery, and of course everybody at Nemo Rangers really saddened by his early passing. So may the Lord have mercy on his most gentle soul. So till the next time, stay safe.